Tonight, I want to invite everyone to welcome the general partner of Greylock, Josh Elman here. Welcome. Before I ask any questions, maybe Josh, you can maybe introduce yourself a little more. What else you want people to know besides what's listed on the website?
Okay. I'm a partner at Greylock. I've been at the firm about 5 years now. I love investing. I spent most of my career working a lot of earlier stage consumer internet companies, some of which grew up to be pretty large, like LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And now I love going and hanging out with lots of young founders and seeing what people are building next. I think there's a ton more to do on mobile. I think it's incredible what last speaker, Louis, sorry, I can't pronounce that. Louis spoke on LiDAR and what's going to happen with our self-driving stuff. Like it's going to be a transformational world, but I actually just get excited about what more there is to build on mobile. There's 1 billion people with live connected devices in their pockets spending more and more time on them. And I think we're just at the beginning, kind of the Web 2.0 era of mobile is about to begin. So.
Great. So you worked actually in some of the amazing, we call it internet or mobile internet companies, the past, including Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. What drive you to join Greylock as VC?
I think I had a slightly different career than a lot of people. I spent not quite 2 years at LinkedIn, maybe around 2 years at Facebook, a little more than 2 years at a company called Zazzle that's still doing really well. And then, about 2 years at Twitter. And so, many people sort of join one of these companies and just stay for a really long time. And I have sort of ADD and a lot of things, and I got attracted to them when they were early and small, and we could go prove that there was something here. And then it started working and the companies got bigger, and I was like, what's the next one I could go join? And so when I left Twitter, and that was sort of a soap opera story of Twitter, when I was asked to leave Twitter, I thought, man, okay, I've just been part of LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. They're all going to go on to be great things anymore. Maybe there's a job I could do that I'll actually be able to stay in for a little bit longer and can go sort of help do what I've been doing sort of serially in parallel. And I thought that'd be venture. And I didn't really know, when I joined Greylock about 5 years ago, I didn't know if I would actually make sense as a GP, if I'd really be leading investments. I joined actually as a principal, but I'd known Reid Hoffman since I'd worked for him in the very early days of Greylock. And they said, hey, just come and hang out here and we'll figure it out. And within a couple of years, for me, that being able to sort of find early stage things, being able to get involved, really hands-on, help them think through stuff, and use the same, like my judgment is when I joined the company, sort of the same judgment I used in my career, has led me to a couple of interesting things. And at least so far, they're letting me stick around and keep writing checks.
That's good. So last year, a new $1 billion fund was announced. I believe that's a pretty big announcement. So what's new and what's changed in Greylock?
I think what's interesting about Greylock is our 15th fund. It's a $1 billion fund. Greylock's been around for over 50 years. So we like to think about sort of the history of venture capital is we're trying to build enduring companies, and we want to be a stable group and platform to help support companies because we really think about how they can build for the long term. And we have a great set of very small group of LPs who've been our limited partners for a big portion of those 50 years. And so actually a lot has not changed. I think Greylock, one thing that Greylock's done really well is hire in new partners, and we talk about sort of how to really mentor and sort of apprentice new partners into the role. And so we actually have a number of new partners. Myself, a woman named Sarah Tavel, who joined us from Pinterest. We're just starting next week is a gentleman named Josh McFarland, who actually founded a Greylock company called Telepart, sold to Twitter for about $500 million. And he was a Googler for a long time before that. So we kind of try to bring in a bunch of younger folks like myself. We're all apprenticed, and over time the hope is we'll kind of learn the Greylock culture, the Greylock way of supporting founders and keep going. But partners like Reid have been there Reid Hoffman's been there for a long time. David Z has been at Greylock for 16 years. So we have a lot of history and Ashim Chanda on the security enterprise side. So we have a lot of history that ties it all together too.
Okay, great. Let's talk about a hot subject today, so self-driving car. I believe Reid and you were in TechCrunch this month last year, talk about AI and self-driving. Let's talk about self-driving car today. I believe Qualergy is one of the company new unicorn last year, and also there's many new startups started last 3 years, 2 years, and several of them receive amazing number of funding in terms of their seed or angel stage.
Yes.
So do you believe is there still opportunities for startups and investors in this space?
Look, the car business, transportation business is more than $1 trillion industry on an annualized basis. Every single person needs to get from point A to point B every day in multiple ways. And it's the most disruptive time in transportation in at least a century. I think a century ago was probably even more disruptive, with what happened in Detroit in the first automotive wave. And then obviously even, in the US in the 1950s with the interstate wave. So we've been kind of looking at these waves of like massive, disruption, and they not only affect the transport, they affect real estate, they affect our life patterns, they affect food and restaurants. I mean, all these daily things were radically transformed, first by the automobile, then by the, what happened when the interstate system was built, and now what's going to happen when all gets reorganized around self-driving. So yes, there's a lot of money pouring into it, and I don't expect that every single company that's getting heavily valued with great talent right now is going to turn out to be the multi-billion, multi-$10 billion, company. But it is certainly true that there will be some that will be so massive and so important and so transformational. And so finding that great group of people with unique talent, and there's been people who've been working on this stuff for the past 10 or 15 years, but the industry's not that old. So, people who've been working on it for a decade are like legends and have the most sort of domain knowledge. So we expect to see some of these teams and companies be able to produce the stuff that becomes truly transformational. I think the question is a matter of when. Is it 3 years from now that we start seeing these on the road everywhere? Is it 1 year? Is it 10? My partner Reed often likes to ask, in what year will it be illegal to get a driver's license and drive on the road, right? And when you think about it that way, you're like, oh man, is that in our lifetimes? It very well may be. So we're really excited, and we're talking to lots of companies every day that are just forming and getting going on this, or companies that have gotten further along.
There are many aspects in this space. So where do you think the winners means maybe a $10 million company come from? Which angle?
That's a great question. One of them is clearly going to be in the data and the network sensibility around what happens when all of the cars are on the road, because there's a lot of people who are making these very vertical stacks of, one car, one system, all the way, the German automakers bought the mapping, bought their own mapping companies. We have Google here that has its own map built into its full stacks. There's going to be all these vertical stack companies, but we think that the ones that can really build the network effect across them are going to be incredibly powerful, because you need to have all these cars talking to each other, talking to traffic, talking to who's going where and routing. We think there's going to be, still massive disruption in the supplies. I think Luay's company is one of the key leaders in LiDAR, and I think there's a lot more that's going to happen around these technologies that can do sensing and detection and start to take enough of a pattern to do real analysis. So we think there's going to be a lot just in the tooling. Mobileye just got bought for $15 billion, and we think there's a company that might look like Mobileye that might get even further as sort of a supplier into the ecosystem. So we're looking at all of it, but we think what's really going to be exciting is in a few years, we'll get to start investing in the things that are a result of self-driving, whether they are what happens when people have more time in their cars, what happens when people want to pick things up, what happens when cars can truly park themselves very far away and be summoned to come back and get you.
Okay, great. So just 1 second.
Technical malfunction here.
It's not working.
Thanks.
Sorry. Let's talk about the software part. Last 2 years, similarly, actually a far larger number of AI companies are founded as well. So I believe you already also talk about investing in AI space. So, but some of my friends talk about potential bubble in the AI space. First, do you believe there's a bubble in the AI space?
I believe right now we have a lot of things that are calling themselves AI, that are like, we're an AI subsystem or something else. And I worry that we're a lot of people with kind of a hammer, trying to build a hammer that's like AI and going around and like trying to find the nails that they can like solve with AI as opposed to that. But that's on one hand. So I think we're seeing some funding that's like, oh, you're doing AI, here's a bunch of money. But what's the rest of the question? Because I like have a lot more to say about where it can go.
Sure. So there's a fake bubble, real bubble. So how about that the real stuff? Okay. Many noise there in the AI space. Are you still investing? That's a real question.
Absolutely. I think we are in, but we're not investing in an AI company that says I'm doing AI. We're investing in companies that are solving real problems for people, whether they're problems for businesses, whether they're problems for consumers. And the fact that the AI technologies now exist in order to address those problems, that's what's making those companies and those product solutions buildable now. And so like there's been a revolution in deep learning. There's great things like TensorFlow. There's all of these ways now that you can build a really cool product that uses the fact that AI exists and better computer vision exists in order to deliver a solution for either users, end users, or businesses. And we love investing in those. And I guess the question we always ask is like, why are you building your company now? Why couldn't it have been built before? And the set of AI and deep learning tools and systems that are available, it's a great answer to that question. But not just, we're doing AI.
So do you have an example of a AI company just invested or you are considering investing?
There are a few that are stealth that I can't talk about yet that are sort of in the AI robotics, self-driving domain. There's one that we actually invested in 3 years ago called Ozlo, O-Z-L-O, that is a bot that was trying to basically build sort of an AI search engine using a bunch of natural language processing that it could actually sort of, you say, I'm hungry, and it says, what do you feel like? And then you say what you feel like, and you're like, but I'm vegan. And then it would actually map all the data and be able to kind of respond to you with a great vegan restaurant or dish nearby wherever you are. And it's sort of a very conversational interface for that. And we basically invested on it as a new search engine. I think before AI and conversational were buzzwords, my partner John Lilly was already all over this company, and they've built an incredible team kind of doing this stuff, and we're constantly looking for more. Okay,
so let's move on to the companies which Greylock had invested maybe several years ago. So there's many unicorns produced last 5 years. Unicorn is a very popular word, many for a while. But some are unicorns are not doing well.
Yeah.
So how are the unicorns invested by Greylock doing?
Yeah, look at this sort of rush to $1 billion valuation is $1 billion valuation is sort of a blessing and a curse, because you raise all this money and now you got to figure out how to spend it, make your company more valuable. And everybody thought, oh, it's worth $1 billion. No, it's worth a chance of being worth a lot more than $1 billion. And it doesn't mean it's worth today categorically $1 billion. We're really lucky to be investors in Airbnb. My partner Reed invested in, I think what was technically the Series A round after they had done a small seed round back in 2009, and he kind of saw that happening, and that's just become a spectacular company. We're investors in several enterprise companies that are just doing incredibly well. Okta is one, and my partner Neil Boucherie led the investment in Okta many years ago. Cloudera is doing well in the Hadoop big data space. We're investors in Nextdoor, which is how many of you guys are on Nextdoor in your neighborhood? It's a good. The rest of you should sign up, find out what's going on in your neighborhood. And they're doing just incredibly well, building out these local fabric of neighborhoods that communicate. So quite a few, and none that I'm, are sort of making the negative headlines right now. So.
Okay, cool, good. So what are the investments you made the last 8 years which you are proud of?
It's funny. Having worked at LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter, I kind of keep getting excited about investing what I know. I made one investment in a company called Smart Things that actually sold to Samsung really quickly. Is sort of a platform for the connected home. But I'm still very excited about what they're doing with Samsung, and where they can go long term in sort of. I'm excited this world of the smart home Internet of Things. I'm an investor in Medium. How many of you guys read things on Medium? That's good. The rest of you should. I'm very excited with how they're doing. It's just a new publishing platform, getting people to tell stories on the internet. I'm an investor in a company called Musical.ly that if you guys don't use, many of your kids or cousins or nephews or nieces may use. It's a really cool network of people being creative with their phones, creating fun videos. One called House Party that was originally called Meerkat when I invested, and it was in the live video broadcasting space. And we realized that that was going to be very competitive with Facebook and Twitter both in it. So we pivoted the company to this thing called House Party that's a private group chat experience with your friends that's just doing phenomenally well on colleges and with sort of a high school and college demographic. And it's been really fun to watch that kind of, it's still in live video, the same kind of thesis. We invested the same team, but I invested 2 years ago and have watched the company spend 6 months trying to do Meerkat and the last year and a half building House Party up to a really, really phenomenal place.
Let's talk about media a little bit more. So actually last year I had a chance to meet some members in the media. So media is an amazing, incredible company. They receive lots of different attractions. But I also hear they have some challenges as well. So maybe you can tell us a little more about what is the potential, what do you see the future of media?
Look, when Evan Williams, and I'd worked with him at Twitter, and he was this, co-founder and CEO at Twitter. He'd also founded Blogger. He's spent his entire life trying to get people to take their ideas out of their head and get them onto the internet and get them available to other people. And when he started Medium, his vision was, look, we have Twitter for things that are short. We have really long articles for things that are long, but people don't always have a story that's too short or too long. They actually want to be able to tell it in a really authentic way. And nothing on the internet really lets you do that. And that's where he came up with the ideas of Medium. He was trying to blog again, and it was too hard to blog, and the software hadn't really changed since he left Blogger to go to Twitter. And that premise is still really true. We want people to be able to tell their stories and get them out there. What we're realizing is in the world of print today, being able to make money from telling your stories matters to some writers just want to be able to print and share for free. But a lot of writers want to actually be able to make money from their stories. And this idea of write a story that hopefully gets enough clicks so that the advertising that goes off when people are reading the story causes you to get paid, just causes people to write the wrong content. It's not content that, it ends up being content to get a click, to get a little flashing ad viewed when it's being read versus something that's really valuable. And so we're now investing a lot in this idea of a subscription product that people will be able to pay Medium a little bit of money to read the best content, to have the content curated for them so that you'll be able to go to Medium and by paying, Medium will be able to say, hey, here's the 10 things you should read right now. And if you just read these, you'll be enriched. You'll learn some things about the things you've expressed that you care about, and your life will be better. And we think if we can really find that model that people are willing to pay for and get that little bit of value every day, we'll kind of get out of this rat race of getting more clicks on your stories to get ads to be viewed and get into something really more valuable.
Got it. What about Musical.ly? I remember Musical.ly actually is quite a special case. You are investing together with some international Chinese investors as well. How's Musical.ly doing?
Musical.ly is a really interesting story. The company has, I don't remember their public numbers, but they have, tens of millions of daily visitors on the product, tens of millions of monthly users of the product. And it's mostly in the US, Latin America, and Europe. And yet the company's headquartered in Shanghai, China. So it's the first time we've talked about the Chinese internet, and it's obviously, Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent, they're incredible companies, but they seem to be in the Chinese market, and we don't see them much here. Musical.ly is the first case I've seen where it's a Chinese team building a product for the Western markets that have just done phenomenally well. I met them about a week before we invested, and I was like, hey, this sounds really cool what you're doing. And I found out they were in China, and we started talking over WeChat, and immediately, I fell in love with what they were building and how they were doing it. And they, had made enough room in the round for us to come in. It's been great to watch this Chinese team understand the American market better than a lot of companies here and build a really creative tool. I think of Musical.ly as empowering creativity. Our phones are great cameras. We capture a lot of things, a video of what's going on around us, or even just a little selfie of us in our moment. But Musical.ly lets you just turn it on yourself and have fun. People dance, people laugh, people play, people perform. And when you look at content there, you can't help but sort of smile and see people having a good time. And it's a very, very different experience than what you get in sort of the other social networks. And so I'm really excited about where they're going to go and keep going.
Cool. Technology challenge. Okay. So Let's go to the right. I know Greylock, GGV, and a couple of big funds incentive actually raised over $1 billion fund last year. But on the other hand, the total VC investment activity had dropped a lot. I believe since Q4 2015.
Yeah.
So last year's overall activity was a lot lower than like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So many people talk about we are still in winter. Two questions. Do you believe this theory of winter? And if you believe, when is the spring?
Yeah. I don't think it's winter. I think 2015 was just the hottest summer ever. Like it was literally like crazy town. Like the valuations, the amount of money being invested, the rounds that were getting done in 2015, it couldn't have been better. We were telling all of our companies, they're like, should we fundraise? We're like, go now. Not that it might not get, like, we're like, we don't know when it's going to stop, but we know it's not going to get better than this. Mm-hmm. And so like a lot of our companies fundraised, which was nice because they got several years of capital. You know, I think we're getting back to what I just call normal. I don't think it's winter or spring. I think companies get funded on great potential outcomes. We have 1 billion, 2 billion people connected to the internet every day. So the world of technology is larger and affecting more industries and more parts of people's lives than it ever has before. So the potential to do that is better. The big companies like the one we're sitting in right now are bigger and have tentacles in more things than ever before. So the opportunity for a startup to find its way uniquely is, I think, in some ways harder than it's ever been. Just because Apple, Amazon, Google, Facebook, maybe Uber, Snapchat, a few others, they're just so big and doing so well in so many areas. I mean, who thought that Amazon was going to launch the best home voice search app? Like that's, we think of them as like delivering our books, and like they've gone so much further beyond it. They run the internet through Amazon Web Services. So these are the transformations. It's harder to be a startup. So I think we're just down now to like good companies with good fundamentals and a big vision of how they can uniquely get big are still getting funded all day long. But everybody can just raise a couple $1 million, or everybody can raise $50 million. That was sort of true in 2015. That was, if you wanted to raise, that was the peak.
When we can ever see some activity back to that peak again?
Look, the last time was 1999. That was fun. Then it took us 15 years. We got back, so maybe 2030. Every 15 years, we'll have a cycle like that.
Okay, great. So as an investor, you have been an investor for 5 years.
Yeah.
You must be facing a different type of challenges. What are the challenges of an investor?
Look, I think the things I talked about, how to find these really great companies and believe in sort of the dynamics of where can it go that is going to be uniquely powerful, independent of Facebook and Amazon and these other companies, I think is harder than it's ever been. I think venture has gotten more competitive. I mean, all these funds have raised a lot of money and everybody's trying to put it to good use. So if I think something's interesting, I'm never the only one who thinks it's interesting. So trying to figure out where to invest. The valuations are still high on a relative basis to what it was, in 2009 and 10 or 11, or certainly where it was in 2002, 3, 4. So finding the opportunities that will still make us enough return. Returning $1 billion is no small task. So as a partnership. So I find all this harder. And are we late in mobile? So I'm kind of waiting for that sort of what I call the mobile 2.0 wave to really open up, where we start to see these new products that we start using in the same way that like when Web 2.0 happened, the consumer internet, everybody thought consumer internet was dead. There was Yahoo, eBay, and Amazon and whatever, and there was no room for new companies. And we kind of are thinking that way sometimes in mobile now, but there's a lot to still be done on our phones. And so I'm kind of waiting for that, and being patient as an investor is probably the hardest thing, because I meet so many people every day that I would love to work with and put money into, and I have to wait for those couple that like really feel like they're the fit with us.
Okay, so can you tell the founder that if you're looking for your next investment, what type of 2 to 3 things you're looking for?
That's a great question. I like to think about it as someone who's got a really big vision of why the world's going to work a little bit differently in a few years, a really unique personal story for why they are the one to bring that vision to reality, and a lot of reasons why they're the right people to do it with expertise or experience and insights that other people won't have. And then a path that actually seems viable for the ways that you can get to phase 1 to really test the theory, and then get to phase 2 and get to, and get all the way there. I don't expect that path to be followed as much as I expect it to sort of, be sort of thoughtful, so that as the world keeps changing, we're able to kind of keep reforming the path, but still see this way that we're aiming to this sort of world-changing state in a few years. Those are the things that get me. And the stuff that helps is some proof already that it's working, some proof already that there's something truly unique here that we can bet on that other people won't be able to catch up to.
Okay, great. So I'd like to open questions to follow up that. Maybe ask a few questions, then Josh can pick up on a couple questions to answer. So, can you speak a bit louder?
Oh yeah, sure. My name is Jane. By the way, I use Nextdoor, Airbnb,
Great.
love them, and Immediate. So I have a questions in terms of sourcing deals. Where do you typically source your deals, and also which one is your richest one?
Okay, great.
So when do you think startups should go to China, or address the China market?
I'm actually interested in the Oslo app you developed because I work on the Google search team.
Oh, cool.
I tried it out, but right now I think the problem is that it just have some hundred downloads in Android.
Yeah.
So I just want to know your opinion of the big challenges in the mobile search area.
Let's turn to just those tricks. Don't forget one. I'll start just quickly with deal sourcing. There's no great answer. Usually it's one of them is our extended network. We get introduced to meeting a lot of great companies all the time, and that often doesn't lead to an immediate investment, but it leads to a relationship that often turns into investments down the line. The other thing is I'm out there. I'm here talking. I'm speaking at events. I'm attending events. I'm always trying to meet new people in order to do it. And we have some people on our team. I have a gentleman who spent a couple of years working on Facebook Messenger and launched the Facebook Messenger platform last year, who's just joined me. So he has a lot of really interesting expertise and thoughts on that, to sort of go meet a lot of people in order to do it, to make investments. And then we go outbound. I mean, a lot of times the companies we get excited about, we first meet them through their products, and then we go try to meet them too. So it's a combination of all of these in order to try to do it. And I want to say there's one rich vein, but the funny thing with venture is every single story is so unique and so bespoke that there's never just a pattern or a system that we do. I was lucky in the case of Medium. I had worked at Twitter in the early days with the founder of Medium. In the case of Musical.ly, I got excited about their product and reached out cold, and we did it in a week. So two very, very different stories for both companies that got excited about. But in the case of Musical.ly, I looked at many other companies in the space and been trying to find video companies that were doing similar things and just hit them right at a time they were already fundraising. So it was kind of a unique confluence of events. In terms of startups in the US going to China, Airbnb is going there now and is having some very nice success. LinkedIn has had some success in China. Other US companies have had much less success. Apple clearly has had great success. It's hard. I mean, it's China is a massive market, and so is the rest of the world. And I think it's been harder for U.S. or Western companies to break into China, I think, than to grow around most of the rest of the world. We've even seen Facebook and Google get stuck and then decide that there's issues with the government, and they haven't necessarily built as much as they can. So my general advice is, depending on what your business is be very thoughtful about whether China's a market you must be in, or whether you can win and really build your business in a lot of other markets before deciding you have to be in China. In terms of Oslo, they're much bigger on iOS probably than Android. Look, I think search on our phone is really, really hard. Getting Google results of 10 results on a page that you click through and look through isn't very helpful. So I think there's still just a ton of opportunity to make our phones much more natural of a response system to us. I also think growing a new company that does search like a utility is very, very hard. So that might be why they haven't invested as much in growing on Android.
Okay, actually, our timing is running out. First, maybe what's your last suggestions, maybe to especially most founders in the room?
Look, I think the one thing I would think about as a founder of something new is think differently and be okay with that. Think about sort of this thing that if you're right, the world actually will work differently, and spend a lot of time on that. Don't just do an opportunity because you think it's there or easy or everybody's talking about it, but that
big hand judge. So that's finish our first part of content and the food a bit exhausted. I'm gonna take a short break, and we'll start the tech talking about 10-15 minutes.
We have so many people outside. If they are not registered for cloud,